Welcome to the flight levels. The FAA is about to open up their bid for brand new air traffic controllers. But before you submit that application, you need to understand that you're going to have very little control over where you live. You're going to have very little control over what vacation you take, and you need to go in with eyes wide open about what this career is going to do for your family life. Let's get to it. When you finish training, whether that's at a CTI school or at the Oklahoma City Academy, you're going to get to pick what facility you're going to go work at. And that sounds great, but not so fast. You see, at the conclusion of your training, the FAA is going to have a list of what facilities need trainees the most. And if you are first in your graduating class, then you do get to pick out of that list. If you are last in your class, then you're just going to get whatever slot is left over that nobody else wanted. And depending on those circumstances, you could end up living and working somewhere very far away from where you live currently. You could end up at a place that you don't even want to be. And that's the reality of this job. Now, there is the possibility of transferring to a new facility once you become a certified professional controller, but there's no guarantee that those options are ever available. If you work at a facility that is short-staffed, they are very unlikely to let you leave while they are short-staffed. So vacation time as an air traffic controller is entirely seniority based. So as a new hire, you're going to be the lowest person in that seniority list. And the way it works is bidding for vacation time happens generally at the end of every year for the following year. So here's a great example. So let's say it's October or November right now, and your family's like, hey, we should go for a cruise in February because in the winter, it's nice to go someplace warm. Great idea. Well, the problem with that is you will not know that you have any guaranteed leave until the bidding process happens. Like I said, that happens usually around December, or depending on how negotiations with management goes, it may not happen until January. So that's a big bummer. And then the fact that all of the leave bidding happens at the same time can also have the reverse effect. So let's say it's now the bidding time in December, and you're like, well, I think I want the third week in August off, but you don't have any plans yet. So you have to bid this time off, and then did that week I bid work for me? I don't know. This is just kind of the reality of bidding for vacation time. So make sure you understand this if you want to be an air traffic controller. Next, I want to talk about something that people considering this career should listen to carefully. So 20 years ago, there were already staffing issues, and the leadership at the FAA was saying oh yeah, we acknowledge this and we have this plan. They would have teleconferences, meetings, flyers oh yeah, we're going to fix this and we're on it. And so here we are 20 years later, and how do you think that's working out? Staffing has definitely not gotten better. If anything, it has severely gotten worse. So you need to ask yourself, has anything changed? Do you think management has learned their lessons? Do you think that staffing is going to get better? Call me pessimistic, but I don't think so. So you need to be fully aware that just because they're hiring a bunch of people right now, including yourself, doesn't mean that staffing is going to get great and morale is going to improve. And this is before we even start talking about the institutional level of the FAA. There's been a whole lot of talk about facilities combining, brand new facilities, maybe facilities closing, and who knows what other reorganization. And if you're caught up in the middle of that, you could be forced to move without any control over your own. I mean, is that something you're willing to accept? Another thing is that government shutdowns have been happening, and they're getting longer and longer. In 2018, we had one that lasted 35 days, and at the time, that was the longest government shutdown in history. And then last year, that record was broken with another government shutdown that lasted 43 days. Now, air traffic controllers are considered essential personnel, so that means they continue working. During the shutdown, their paychecks do stop. However, they are paid for all of the work they did work. But depending on the length of the shutdown, that could be a significant amount of time where you are not getting paid. And again, like depending on the circumstances in your life, that is a very big deal. And think about, how is the political climate in this country going? Do you think that we're going to keep having shutdowns, or is everyone going to hold hands and sing Kumbaya and those are a thing of the past? So something to consider. Now let me tell you about something that controllers we talk about, but it doesn't really get into the press very much. And if you talk to experienced controllers who've been around those that have retired, and of course you are forced out at age 56, and you will frequently hear conversations about, oh yeah, that guy, retired a couple years ago. Oh, well, he just passed away. And I will admit there isn't any hard based evidence on mortality rates of retired controllers. But what I can tell you is that controllers do have increased risks of hypertension, heart disease, depression, and sleep disorders. And those are not minor health footnotes. Those are conditions that shorten lives. So you can connect the dots there however you want. And that makes sense when you think about what the job actually demands. With rotating shifts, you're constantly cycling between a day shift, an evening shift, an overnight shift, and this goes on for decades. Your body can never catch up because it never has a chance to. Chronic sleep disruption is one of the most damaging things you can do to your long-term health, and it's essentially baked into your job description. And then there's the stress. And this isn't just like the normal stress from, some office job. This is the one where if you have a lapse in judgment, even for just a couple seconds, can have some catastrophic consequences. And we don't have to look very far in the past of instances where this has happened. And controllers carry this stress day after day, and at the end of their shifts, they have to go home and act like a normal person, and that's not easy. So the FAA definitely isn't putting this in their recruitment brochures. So we've touched on seniority for bidding vacation time, but seniority also determines what days of the week you work. So when you're low in the seniority, your days off are generally Tuesday and Wednesday, or Wednesday and Thursday, the furthest away from the weekend. And when you're single and young, this is actually pretty great. I remember going skiing in the middle of the week and thinking, man, this is fantastic. I have the place to myself. Or even little things like shopping at Costco. Like, that is pretty awesome to do on a Tuesday as opposed to a Saturday. And then you have a family, and that whole dynamic changes. And you end up missing all sorts of things that always happen on the weekend, like soccer games, birthday parties, holidays. And this isn't just occasionally, this is routinely. And then there's the divorce rates amongst controllers. And I've seen this affect a lot of friends personally and myself. And these rates are not good. Shift work doesn't just affect your schedule, it affects your presence, it affects your home life, and it compounds slowly and quietly. In ways that are genuinely hard to see coming when you're a young adult in your lower 20s, when you're excited about this brand new exciting career. And this brings me to what I think is the most important thing to consider if you want to apply to be an air traffic controller. So the pay in this career is great. The retirement benefits are real and meaningful. If you put in the time, the financial outlook is outstanding. But there's a lot of controllers that get 15 years in, they get burnt out, they get tired, they want to change careers. So what ends up happening is they start looking around at what else they can do and realize that their resume for the last 10, 15 years is so specialized at being an air traffic controller. And all the things that make you great at being a controller are not transferable to any jobs at anywhere near the same pay they were making as a controller. So they end up being stuck because they've been used to this high pay. They've got a house payment. They've got, college tuition to save up for. They, maybe you've got a boat payment and they can't afford to quit. And that is a really unfortunate situation to be locked in these golden handcuffs of this career if they want out. I want to be clear about something. I'm not telling you not to apply. There are controllers that genuinely love their careers. They have loving families that support them with the circumstances of this choice, and none of them would trade it for anything. But this FAA hiring announcement is going to create a wave of interest. And most of the content that you're going to see is going to be talking about the pay, the job security, the satisfaction that goes along with this career. And those are all real and fantastic. But those don't tell the whole story. So I'm suggesting you go find a controller and talk to them about what it's really like. Ask them about what is life like in the first 5 years? What about it 10 years in? What about 20 years in? And try to get a more realistic picture of not just the job itself, but about the lifestyle. Because this isn't just a job, this is a specific life, and a life that has trade-offs that are worth understanding before you're committed and locked in. I hope you found this video helpful. If you know anyone that's thinking about applying to be your air traffic controller, be sure to share this video with them. And then if you have any other questions or comments, be sure to put them down below. Make sure to visit flight-levels.com, and remember, don't just fly, climb to the flight levels. If you want to see what a day in the life of a real air traffic controller looks like, be sure to click here to see my video all about that.